evening, everybody. Welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 319, and today we have Guro, Bryan, Cannata, and I'm looking forward to this one. If you guys, saw the test run, it was pretty interesting. Some of the areas that we were talking about, as far as community, some HEMA versus FMA, and some other things we were talking about. So we're going to cover all that today. So if you're watching, please tell us where you're watching from. Smash that like button. If you do have questions, put them in the comment section and I will definitely see them. But without further ado, I'm going to be bringing in our Guro Bryan up. Hey there.
Hey, everybody.
So what you drinking? Ooh, James. Hey, I wonder if I had some of that, if that would help my situation.
You should. You ought to get yourself a drink, sir.
Yeah, so folks, if you're watching and I start coughing, I was diagnosed with COVID, but symptoms are not that bad, kind of flu achy like, so nothing too bad. But yeah, so we're gonna get through this stuff, no problem. Okay, so before you got an FMA, we were talking in the test run, you alluded to that you were moving around a lot when you were young, and so whatever happened to be an area as far as a martial arts or school, you kind of took it. So it sounds like as far as the traditional martial arts pre-FMA, you were exposed to quite a different bunch of systems. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
yeah, that is true. I was one of those troubled, hyperactive kids. Yeah, this was the '70s, and I was living with my grandparents at the time due to family situations. You know, and they bought all the stuff about martial arts and discipline and all of that, and they thought it would be a good thing for me, and they signed me up for a local school, and I was actually a Chuck Norris student back in the early 1970s. One of my favorite jokes is I'm one of the few people that that's actually punched Chuck Norris and lived. So, but
So, oh wow, so were you at a satellite, a school that the teacher was under?
Um, this was all right. This was 1977, 1978. This was right when Chuck Norris was really breaking into Hollywood.
I was gonna say, yeah.
This was when Good Guys Wear Black came out. At the time, Norris was involved in pretty much every school he owned, and he made it a point to come to the schools to spar with the students, to sit in on belt testing. He was very, very active. And, as his career took off, those schools in the Virginia area became less and less important as more of his life developed out in California.
Mhm.
Man, and from what I understand, just what I've read over the years, there business stuff behind there as well, but I don't really know anything about that. I was just another kid in the gi in a school that he ran. But that started a lifelong obsession with martial arts, and I was a teenager in the '80s. Karate Kid came out, all the ninja movies,
That's right. Yeah.
all of that stuff. And as goofy and as horrible as most of those movies are, they still inspired me as a kid.
As
And
many as others too. Yeah.
oh, absolutely. And let's face it, who didn't want to be a ninja when they grew up?
No, I know I wanted to be. I wanted to have all those weapons and run around at night in black.
Absolutely.
you know.
So anyway, like I said, it started a lifelong obsession, and then wherever we moved, whether it was karate classes at the local Y, or if there was actually a school that was generally within walking distance of my house, I would go.
Mm.
And because of that, I've studied Taekwondo, I've studied Goju Ryu, I've studied Muay Kwan, I've studied Tang Soo Do. It's just wherever we were. And it gave me a very broad appreciation of the martial arts in general. And eventually I kind of, excuse me, sort of funny story. I'd always been interested in European martial arts, but nobody knew anything about them at that time of outside of a few academic circles. And I was in the barracks one night, and I had just broken up with a girl, and my roommate was literally dragging a suit of armor out from under his bed. And I was like, "What in the world are you doing?" And he told me he's going to this fighter practice thing. I'm like, "That sounds interesting. I've got nothing better to do." And I was a private. I had virtually no money at that point, and nothing better to do. So I went, and I was expecting it to be a goof, because to be honest, the suit of armor he had was looked more like something out of Mad Max than than out of Excalibur. And I go to this thing, and I don't know anybody there, and I'm seeing these people putting on stuff and gear, and I'm like, "Oh, great, this is going to be a funny story one day." And then they squared off in a backyard, and they started really going at it. And I was like, "Wow, these people, they're actually fighting. They're not pretending. They're not playing a game. They're doing something." And so I got involved in that. And one of the problems of being military and being right outside a military base is there wasn't a lot of people around to practice with. So I had to do a lot of traveling. It was not uncommon for me to hop in a car and go run 4 hours up to Charlotte to train up there with people, and then turn around and go back to base and do my normal military stuff. I did that for a while, got transferred over to Germany. Over in Germany, I tried to do it there, but there just wasn't that many people. And then, but I did get involved with a local martial arts club there, went back to more traditional stuff. And for those of you that have been around military bases, there's always somebody that is holding classes or has a study group, whatever. So, I did that. Then came back to the States, got out of the military, but was still, traveling around doing this medieval fighting. And became a police officer, and that kind of slowed down my pursuit of that. And that's where I very first met my Filipino martial arts teacher, Professor Luke. And he was teaching officer survival. And I thought this guy was really cool. I was really impressed with what he was doing. It was something I hadn't particularly seen before. And, time passed on, and I got to the point where I just didn't have time to travel like I did before. And I started looking around. I vaguely heard of Filipino martial arts. Again, being a child of the 80s, everybody had that Balisong book, and the original fidget spinner.
Yeah.
And so I started calling around the local martial arts schools, just cold calling them from the phone book. And, I was like, "Do you guys do Filipino martial arts?" Because my thought was that it is a living system that is directly related one way or another to European systems.
Mm-hmm.
And there'd be enough crossover there that I would get something out of it. I wouldn't be wasting my time. And I found a school that taught. through that, you know, I found out that the school was, and the organization that certified the school was run by BK Luke, who taught the officer survival course. And through that, I met Chris Nally. I'm sure you've heard his name.
Oh, Chris, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Chris is one of my oldest friends in this area. We train regularly. In fact, my current study of Balintawak is technically through Chris, through Bobby, because Bobby lives in Charlotte. Chris comes through. We have a little study group here. Chris is currently, I think he's level 5, but you know, and we all work together. But anyway, that aside, back to you know, the Filipino martial arts. Luke, after a few years, retired. He turned the management of the school and the system over to, now he was still technically in charge, but Chris ran a lot of stuff. And there ended up, through time, being a small core of us at this particular gym. And we were training ridiculously hard every day, pretty much. Because the school offered a wide variety of programs. They were one of the first schools in the area to do BJJ, and mind you, this is like 94-ish.
Yeah, that's pretty early. I mean,
yeah.
First UFC was 93. So
yeah. So we were doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we were doing Thai kickboxing, we were doing regular kickboxing, and we were doing Filipino martial arts. And just that was my life during the week. And on the weekends, I dressed up in a suit of armor, and I went all over the country and you know, fought. But what I loved about it, and what basically happened, is that the SCA, which is this, you know, Society for Creative Anachronism, they're a recreation society, but they have this, you know, martial aspect to them. It became my proving ground and testing ground for FMA, because I would practice it in the gym, and then I'd take it and I'd go out here and I'd do it with, you know, I'd learn to make the stuff that I was learning in the gym work in competition with people that were 100% non-compliant. And that really informed a lot of my practice. And it's one of the reasons why I'm really big on pushing sparring. I don't believe you can truly make a system your own, really take ownership of the skills, until you can apply them. It doesn't matter if you can do them with a compliant partner. What matters is if you can actually perform them. Now, let me be clear. I don't think it's wrong if that's what you want to do. You want to learn a system as a cultural artifact, let's call it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's awesome. And there's nothing wrong with that. Me personally, if I'm going to spend this effort, I want to be able to make it work. And so, you know, that became the thing. And it was an amazing journey. And it's part of why I don't even tell why I don't call what I teach now by, you know, the Renrakudo name, because what I teach now isn't that anymore. I've had so many other teachers that have influenced me, so many other teachers that have changed my mind about little things that I've added or removed. They're not the same beast anymore. They're really not. In fact, why I use the term Calis Americano? Because number one, I am blade focused. It is about swords. It is about knives. But this is an American's take on it. I'm not a Filipino. I'm not pushing or representing somebody's family or specific art. I'm My goal as a teacher is to help people find their art, not to be me, but to be them and learn how to make what I teach theirs. Um,
Yeah. So
it's
just
kind of in
going
a
back,
nutshell.
so this first FMA experience of yours, it sounds like it was in Virginia. What was the style?
Well, no, it was here in Georgia. It was here in
Oh,
Georgia.
okay, okay. So
Yeah.
what was the
Like when I got out of the military, like right after the first Gulf War, I settled here.
okay,
Essentially,
okay,
yeah,
Georgia. Okay,
this is
so
my home now. Yeah, I've been here for quite some time.
okay.
It's kind of hard to say. It is essentially a mishmash style. My understanding is that Luke was involved with many different systems. I know he did Dose Paris for a while. I know he did a bunch of PTK and whatever else he picked up that he
Um,
into it. So,
okay.
you know, it's it's his style.
Yeah.
And
No, I was just curious, but I can imagine, back then, because you're talking about like, early '90s or whatever. I mean, when you look at that time ago, I mean, as far as obviously, Anasano blend was heavy, PTK,
Mhm.
minor Nice. I would have to guess those probably being the big three. I mean, talking terms back then.
Right.
So
And sometime in that period, and I'm not exactly sure when, but we discovered Vunak and
mm,
we discovered Keating. And Keating has been one of the biggest influences on me, not necessarily technique wise, but philosophy wise, and
mm,
finding that universal principle that applies throughout all martial arts. And one of the things I tell my students is that if you don't see something based on a principle you see in three or four martial arts, it's probably something that somebody made up and it's not worth your time.
yeah,
Um, yeah, they are. The human body only moves in so many ways. Swords only work in so many ways.
mm,
There's no, when you really get down to it, you look at edged weaponry. To wax philosophical for a bit, I like to say there's only one true art, and every style and form is an expression of that art, dictated by culture, climate, and technology.
mm,
You But behind that, when you take those things out, you start seeing the same principles, the exact same. Um, I mean, I can show you a roof block, to like a very common movement we see a lot in the Filipino martial arts is we do a roof block and we aim that roof block right here on the incoming arm so that we're both defanging the snake and blocking that strike that's coming in while moving offline. Real simple principle. We do it in just about every single FMA system. I can show you the exact same movement in the 14th century in Germany from a fight manual that's not Filipino martial arts, that
right.
has no connection to the Filipino martial arts, but using a sword, finding effective motion to defeat an opponent, logical thinking people will come up with the same answers.
Yeah, that's 100%. Regardless of continent, background, ethnic group. I mean, yeah. And that's been proven. Like you just mentioned. So I guess what I want to get to is because you coming from a heavily traditional and you get exposed to FMA. Obviously, there was something that you really resonate with you and that you like that you wanted more. What stood out? Like, why? In other words, I guess my question is going to be like, why not continue pursuing the traditional martial arts? You seem to go into the weapon based martial arts, and I guess for the audience, why is that?
All right. Well, always in the back of my mind when I look at traditional, well, let's call them mainland Asia.
Mm.
Okay. Mainland Asia. You're always starting off with the empty hand.
Yeah.
White belt standing in a row, low block, reverse block, high block. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But when you are truly in a conflict, when you're truly fighting, to be empty-handed is like the worst place to be. You're always going to want some kind of force multiplier, some kind of weapon. Um, the guy that became the first king was the first one to pick up a rock.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, to simplify things dramatically. But so the idea to me was, when do we get to focus on the weapons? When do we get to focus on the actual functional side, holistic approach to warfare? Yeah, I was already doing that in the military. This bombs, guns, tanks. We have all of that stuff. But as far as the empty-handed stuff, 36 Chambers and Five Deadly Venoms. I love those movies. They are fantastic.
There's got to be some old kung fu movies, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Fondest childhood memories were literally every Saturday afternoon growing up, when Kung Fu Theater would come on. That was like me and my dad's thing. We would watch Kung Fu Theater, and then I'd go out and do some stuff for a couple hours, and I'd come back home, and then we'd watch Saturday Night Fights and watch boxing. Great stuff.
Yeah.
That was like our thing. But let's see, where was I? I kind of got distracted there for a minute. Oh yeah, what drew me to the Filipino martial arts? Practicality. The starting with weapons. Then once I got beyond that, the idea that the art is conceptual, not based on specific techniques, and the way those principles are translated and taught is brilliant. When it comes to the Filipino martial arts, my personal opinion is not what they're doing as far as how to swing a stick, how to move a knife. Mankind's been doing that forever. What's brilliant and the true genius of the Filipino martial arts is the way they organize it and transmit that information and those principles. That is something that the FMA does like nobody else. There is no other system that does it like the Filipinos do.
Interesting, because I've done HEMA. I'm doing HEMA now, the German longsword, actually.
Mm-hmm.
The ox and the whole, and I do, but I gotta admit, the conveyance of tactics, I'm not seeing like FMA.
And here's, you're running into exactly what I ran into, is trying to take dead pictures, turn them into something that's functional. When you, to kind of use the Jurassic Park analogy, if you take the frog DNA from Filipino martial arts and you stick it into historical European martial arts, all of those dead pictures start to make a lot more sense.
Yeah, come alive. Yeah.
And eventually I just got to the point through it all where I was just like, why am I chasing after this? Because I'm doing more and more of this.
Yeah.
I'm doing more and more Filipino martial arts. So I'm just going to go this way. And yeah, that's where I am now.
No, that's great. So what, so it sounds like, again, your first exposure, you're getting a little dose of Paris, Fajita, and all that. after he closed shop or what have you there, what systems did you pursue or did you kind of fall into as far as?
Well, at that point, it was really here. It was Steve and myself, Steve Ledwith. You don't know if you know his name or not, but he's kind of fallen off. We and another guy who's passed away, Bill Campbell, we sort of started our own. I don't really want to call it a training group, but it's not exactly what it was. But we were doing a lot like the guys in the boudoir are doing.
Okay.
We would get together and we would, hey, I just got this, at the time VHS. Uh, you know, let's go work this out. Let's see if we can make this work.
Yeah.
And this was a little bit after I had really started getting into the whole philosophy of Keating and started. That's a weird thing to say, but at that point I started more or less looking for my way instead of trying to emulate what somebody else was doing. And then it became I would work with anybody. Oh, there's a seminar near me. I'll go take the seminar. Let's see what I can learn. It's at one point we had systemized and created a curriculum and were teaching what you would now call blade combatives. I frequently joke that I'm a low rent Michael Janich. Because we were pulling from everything, anything we could study with. Now, but what we had that very few people had, and I'm so lucky for this, is a group of people and a private gym and a complete lack and disregard for personal safety. We would beat the living daylights out of each other just to make things work, to find out what actually truly worked. And that's also where I learned that anything will work given the right circumstances and given the right progression of training. It really changed my viewpoint on a lot of what people would call ridiculous. Let's take disarms. Paula wrote something about that, which is brilliant. Y'all should read it. My original thought was that disarms were garbage. Other than a couple of really basic things like smashing a man's hand, or chopping the arm off. That's a great disarm. But the fancy disarms. Then I saw that there were people that could actually do them and do them full speed against safely resisting opponents. And it was an eye opener to me because at that point I realized, okay, it's not the technique, it's my effort and my training. So, it's like I said, it is a constant quest to find and improve my way. I've got a black belt, I've got a fifth degree in our system, and I got a certificate. It sits up under my bed. But it's like I've said before. I generally prefer the term coach over guru because I'm not trying to teach you a system. I'm trying to teach you a thought process. I'm trying to give you the tools to make this stuff work for you. Because you're going to be taller, you're going to be shorter, you're going to be stronger, you're going to be slower, you're not going to think as quick. My goal as a teacher is to help you find the way what you're doing work. And if you don't know what to do, then I'll show you something that I might do in that situation.
Yeah.
And we could work on it and train it.
I do like that. As far as a coach. So when you look at your teachers, then, so it's more or less that going to seminars that you mentioned. Obviously, you were heavily influenced by James Keating and a few others and all that. Um, I think it's just kind of neat. Like I think you're one of the first interviews that like where it wasn't like, well, I trained in this for 10 years and something happened and I went over here and then I was in this system for 5 years and all that. So this is kind of neat how you guys will go out your experiences, bring it back in and just play with it and see what the results came out of it.
Mm-hmm. You, if and I it was pure chance and luck that I happened to be with a group of people that we all meshed and were able to do this. If a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have willingness to, number one, admit that this is me, it's not the art. Number two, dedicate the time to figure out how it works. One of the things I tell my students all the time, and pretty much I'll tell anybody, again, going back to disarms, which are kind of a pet peeve of mine. If you cannot reliably step to the side, turn to a 45-degree angle, and hit somebody on the side of the head with an angle 1, you don't need to be worrying about disarms. If you cannot do that against at least 75% of the people that you are sparring against, don't even worry about that because you're not there yet.
Yeah, right. If you can't angle off and counter somebody,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're looking at this.
Yeah.
No, point taken. And all that. So it sounds like as far as like again, just to mention this is somewhat unique as most people, as far as teachers have any of them. It sounds like yours just based on mutual, like-minded group of guys. I guess science lab, pre-science lab, if you will.
Yeah. It's funny. I see stuff being posted all the time, and with a very close group of friends, I like to joke that I'm a martial arts hipster. We were doing that in the '90s, but like the taking it and taking it out of the context of a system, and then going into a lab, going into a private gym, or going to a park with a group of your friends, whatever, because a dojo doesn't have to be a building, and really exploring it and moving on from there, and learning to integrate that into how you move, into what you do, like Hubud. I love Hubud. I really do. It's one of my favorite drills. Um, but so many people see it or discount it. They think of it as a patty cake.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I learned it, it was a straight up combative, intense. I'm trying to find the right way to put this. Hubud was done with evil intent.
I think you just hit the nail on the head, though. Done with evil intent, done with intention. I think what a lot of people are seeing today, it doesn't have that. I'm just guessing, far as an overall lens, far as the community and why they would discredit that. Based on I guess what you are doing or what you experience. I don't think that's what they're seeing today. If I had to guess.
Yeah, and I watch people. One of my biggest complaints, and I'm not. Every system does things differently. So again, this is my viewpoint, and I am not speaking for anybody, or I am not condemning anybody. One of my biggest problems, and with it comes out of the way it was primarily taught in the late '90s as a energy drill.
Yeah.
So what you get is guys doing hubud here. They're doing all this tippy tappy, slapping at the hand, a little check here at the wrist, and then that's if they're doing it decently, and it's here. A lot of times you're seeing it here, 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 and then these big. I get the Jerry Springer punch to kind of lay down the conception, the concept of what's going on, but we get when you see most people performing it. And I kind of wish I had one of my guys here so I could demonstrate it, but we always see hubud done where the checking hand is checking here. We're seeing this point of control on the wrist, or directly on the wrist. This gives you no control over my arm.
Yeah.
Okay. I was a blacksmith for 10 years. I guarantee you I'm probably stronger than you in, my grip strength. However, if you change that check from here to here, there's nothing I can do. And now you have full body leverage control by pushing this across my body. So why don't
you tappy, especially when the knife comes into play? If you're not controlling tricep, I don't know what your objective is, because you're going to get killed. Right. In translation to the real. So I'm definitely with you on that, as far as the arm control, and that's one thing I do see that from afar, that's missing or lacking. So I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right there.
But it's my problem is not that systems are wrong. Because when you study a martial art, most people are not really truly studying a martial art because it's going to save their life. Most people are studying it because it's fun.
Yeah.
They enjoy the activity.
Yeah, something to do.
It's a sport. It's competition. So if within the rules of a competition, we use this to develop some quick hand motions and some coordination, fine. Cool. I'm good with that. But, don't say it's not something just because you don't use it that way. Just because you didn't take the time to learn to make it functional.
Yeah. It's funny. Tom Sotis, much like you said of Amok, gave me a different lens on hubud, and he was paralleling what you were mentioning, and because my window of lens, I should say my lens of it, was the just, and I'm thinking like, okay, I want to believe what you're saying. I really do. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to listen to what you have to say here and show me, and so, yes, you're absolutely right. It can be made to be ballistic or something crashing in behind it or off balancing.
Oh, yeah.
But unfortunately, it's generally not taught that way.
Yeah. And even if it's not taught that way, I'm still really surprised that we don't see it. All right, like let's take a comparison between hubud and what certain people like to call seminar sombrata, basic box pattern.
Box pattern, okay, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you can do it as a linked chain of movements that allow you to practice certain skills together. In the case of hubud, we have the very first skill you learn is a simple parry. Every single boxer knows how to do that. All right? It's nothing complicated about it. The next thing we learn to do is parry and check. Get that other hand up there. So again, this is not a crazy skill. It's not difficult. We teach X blocks in all sorts of martial arts. All right. The next thing we do is we learn to control that arm. So we're taking 3 separate skills and we're putting them all together. And we put them together in a way that we can train them in a flow. So so we've trained the flow, but everybody fails to take that flow and make it combative. Well, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people. And I think so much of that stems from the Filipino energy drill way it was presented back in the early to mid 90s.
I think it was through the seminars, which you kind of touched on, because you got this mass amount of people, you want them to get something. So hence the beginning of the, I guess, what gets lost in translation, watered down, depending on which cliche you like. And I think it's due to that seminar format where many, you're trying to get this across to many,
Yeah, and that's something that's been mentioned on this channel a number of times. Is part of what makes FMA unique is that it's really not a mass consumer product. It is best taught one-on-one. And, like, I don't study Kali Illustrismo, all right? But I love Tatang Illustrismo. I love the way he moves.
How could you not love that guy? Huh?
Yeah, it's just chef's kiss. But, like I said, we can see what these people are doing, and we get the seminar circuit of today, and through the 90s, caused so much of this information to be down to be. It was like a giant game of telephone. Is the best way I can describe it. And not to mention all the people that, during the period went out, spent 4 hours with somebody, paid them a bunch of money, and then went to Poughkeepsie, Iowa, and set up shop. So
no, that started all in the late 90s. Yeah, the weekend seminars, and I know. Yeah, it sounds like, it's funny. While I think in the late 90s, things were being propagated and they were being kind of brought to attention and spread, but I also think the curse of that was kind of some of the stuff we're seeing today. You know what I mean?
And that's one of the wonderful things about the internet. Again, I told you last night how I like to look at the positive. One of the things that this is doing is it is all these people that are putting themselves out there and representing themselves in dishonest ways. They're being very quickly figured out, and they can no longer say that, well, yeah, I was a private student of Angel Cabalis, and I was such and such, and now you've got guys that were like eating dinner with Cabalis every other night, going, you at the table.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like, yeah, it is. I think a lot of people did that because they're right. There's no way they could disprove, or prove. Now it's like, uh-oh.
And honestly, at that time point, nobody knew what the Filipino martial arts really were. They were a secret thing. One of Vunak's biggest claims to fame was teaching the SEALs, and it's a wonderful thing. But remember how the tactical market was then. So any claim to, anything like that was, remarkable for people.
That was right. Yeah, no, that was a big thing, right? Virginia. Yeah. So, okay. So when did you start teaching? Like within FMA, like.
I want to say it was toward the end of the mid 90s, or 96-ish, as things changed, as the school where our group was, started focusing more and more on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which, it was growing at the time.
Yeah, right.
And eventually just became essentially a MMA school, and eventually closed down because, well, if you've ever actually run a brick and mortar school, that's a nightmare.
I have way back. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, the business side of that is horrible, and most of those things. I can, Ryan. I'm just answering a question I saw here real quick. Self-defense is honestly not being there in the first place. Self-defense is that thing you do in those first few seconds of, oh shit, something's happening. That is self-defense. After that point, mindset has to change, and you have to go on to the offensive to take control of the situation. And that's no longer self-defense. Self-defense is that first, oh shit, let me do something to survive that first moment.
Initial onslaught.
Yeah. After that, you need to take control of the situation and bring it to a point that you can stop it. And that's going from, oh no, to you now bring the fight to them until you have stopped them from attempting to injure you. That's self-defense. That could, and what are my thoughts on overkill systems? Man, that is, everything is contextual. It really is. Certain systems, certain popular systems are considered overkill. And while that might be not applicable in, I don't know, pick any suburban city USA. On the other hand, in cartel-infested Mexico, maybe it's the way to go.
Yeah, you might just need it.
Yeah, so it's I like to think of it kind of this way. If you're facing an armored battalion, of course you want a tank. If you're just defending your home, maybe a pistol's enough. And it's all about context.
What about adhering to self-defense laws? Pending state, right? I mean,
well, that I would simply say is a matter of personal ethics. I'm not a lawyer. I barely know the laws in my own state. So I really don't feel qualified to speak on that. But I will say this. No matter what happens, I want my family to go home. That's it. Now, do you have to live with the consequences of your actions? That's entirely between you and whatever you believe in, man.
I think it's a fair answer, right? I mean, ethics and what's going on at the time. Did they break in your house? Are they swearing at you from the road? I mean, right? Yeah. I mean, that's going to determine like what you do, like you were saying, context. You know what I mean? So when you're teaching, you started like mid '90s and all that. So two-part question: what was the inspiration for you to start teaching? And generally speaking, what systems did you pull from, like that, or what were you teaching? And were there systems of choice?
That's relatively simple and relatively complicated. Why I started teaching is because our teachers pushed us to teach. Yes, it was, to truly know something, you need to be able to teach it. If you can't teach it, if you can't analyze it to the point that you can communicate it to another human being, you don't know it well enough. So teaching was a very big part of our class. You would maybe take since groups are generally small, you take a small group off to one side and you would work with them on a technique as soon as you knew that technique well enough to be able to teach it to somebody. So it's inherent in it. And less of a conscious decision of I'm going to be a teacher, and more of, well, this, so you need to teach it. And for a while, I was running the Filipino martial arts program there, because people had left, people had moved. It's just I kind of was the idiot that stuck around.
I was like, and plus, you were going out there getting the information, so it probably just made sense.
Yeah,
You know.
and to be fair, I love it. One of my favorite things in the world is seeing that light come on in a student's eye, to see
Yeah, isn't that something when they get
that
something?
connection, and they're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, now I understand," and
yeah,
they're able to, and then you've given them something that is just
yeah. You see
wonderful.
that excitement in their face. You know? Yeah, it's, yeah. When so were there particular? Was it more you were drawing from your, what you experienced kind of in the science lab with your guys there, and were you kind of generating
No,
curriculum around that?
we had a curriculum.
Okay.
We had a definite curriculum, and there was a little bit of tweaking by each individual that taught it, but not much,
Hmm.
because everybody teaches everything a different way. But what I taught then was purely our by the book Ren Rakudo. Yeah, exactly. Teaching is part of learning. It was our curriculum. It's written down, and it is basic. Nothing crazy, but the abecedario is very common across all sorts of systems. We focused on a number of very specific drills. Hubud, Lubud, Punyo Sombrada, regular Sombrada. Um, we did a lot of um, counter for counter type
Hmm.
stuff, very, very, very similar to a lot of what I am learning now in Balintawak. But in that there was yeah, like a very common thing, and I'm not particularly talking out of school here or anything, but the inside deflection to an angle two. Just about every system has that, but it's that kind of parry repost sort of energy. So we did a lot of stuff like that. And heck, we were even beginning to branch into stick grappling back then. Yeah, the Dog Brothers at the time were, again coming out, and we're like, oh, that's cool. We do that too.
Yeah, the tapes came out. I mean, and so so was it primarily? Did you guys primarily focus on stick, or was it a little everything, as far as some empty hand components, edge weapon?
For the children, it was primarily stick.
Yeah.
We did not go into any real applications of what you were doing with a stick then. With the kids, it was essentially um, choreography is the best way to put it. Once you started dealing with adults, basically our progression was this: you start with a stick.
Mm.
From the stick, you take that and you translate it to the knife.
Mm.
From the knife, you take that and you translate it to the empty hand. And
Okay.
we go through every drill, every step in that progression. You'd learn a drill. Let's say sombrada. You'd learn that box count sombrada with a stick. Then you'd learn it with a knife.
Mm.
Then you'd learn it with a stick and a knife. One in each hand doing the different parts. And then you would do it empty-handed. And that's how we would string them along. And once you got to that, and you could do these drills, then we started playing that cut game, and it's just something we did where you would start finding those spaces in between the movements where you could drop that cut in and then continue on to the next movement. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, you find the gaps. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, yes, it's the space in between the notes that's important.
Yeah. No. I would call that practicum. So what was I gonna say here? So what do you? I mean, so you've been teaching for a long time, which is I think fantastic. What do you overall? What do you advocate to your students as far as their personal journey?
Cross train with everybody that you can.
Awesome, absolutely.
I am not one of these people that are like, this is the way. Because again, as I said in the beginning of this discussion, my job is to help you find your way.
Mm.
If your way is with a teacher that resonates better with you than with me, by all means, go learn from them, because you're doing yourself a disservice if you stay with me.
Yeah.
I want you to find that thing that I want you to find your art, your expression of the art, and I might not be the one to give it to you. So maybe something else works better for you. And above all, that's like my big driving principle: cross train.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I tell my students all the time. I tell them you're the most important part of the equation. It's not me or the system. It's you. And you owe it to yourself to go out there and experience everything humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they appreciate that, that they see that in an instructor where he's not trying to indentured servitude or to keep you in there. I think they really appreciate that. Like, wow, man, this guy he's telling me to go out there and experience different things. And I think that resonates with folks,
Yeah. What I am a martial artist. I don't make my living with martial arts.
Yeah, that helps too. But yeah, same.
Yeah. So I mean, I am very privileged that I can go, and I joke about it, but I'm dead serious. I fire students, and I'm like, no, this ain't working.
That's funny. I've had to fire one or two. That's funny.
I mean, bottom line, we are dealing with some very life-changing things here. This isn't, the Filipino martial arts are not like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where I can take you down to the ground, I can choke you out, or I can tap you out, and tomorrow you're going to wake up with a hangover, maybe some bruises. It's not like that at all. The stuff we teach has life-changing repercussions if they are applied outside of the gym.
No, so true, right?
So if I get like a hinky feeling from a student,
no, I know,
or I get one of these, what's Bill McGrath called? Knife cultists.
Totally. Like, yeah, the guy.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm not the guy for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've had to do that. Guy called up one time. He goes, yeah, I want to learn knife fighting, and I was just like, yeah, I'm sorry. Matter of fact, I didn't even reference it. I'm just like, hey, yeah, unfortunately, I can't help you. I'm not. Unfortunately, I don't know anybody in the immediate area either. So I was just like, I was like, man, knife fighting. That's always an alarm. I want to learn knife fighting. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Oh, that's always, man. That's always interesting. When you hear that. So, okay. You mentioned, we talked about this and the importance thereof. I mean, your lens on sparring, which I know is important. I guess you could tell me why. And I guess the second part of the question is, how do you gradually introduce it to your students?
Well, that's actually changed recently.
Okay, let's hear it.
No, it's changed in a good way.
Good. Okay.
Or at least I think, and I owe that to listening to the people that you have had on here. So I've got to give credit where credit is due.
Hey, we're big on giving credit. So, hey.
When I came up, all right, we would, when I said, oh, the Dog Brothers, yeah, we're doing that too. It's kind of what we were doing. We put on fencing helmets or hockey helmets, which, by the way, if you guys out there do hard sparring, one of the things we have found is that hockey helmets actually protect your head better
Oh hell yeah!
than a
Oh yeah.
fencing mask. And if you want to go hard with sticks, get yourself some hockey helmets.
It's just the echo in the hockey helmets, but they're definitely more protective. The echo will
You know
kind
what
of.
you can do? You can put in earplugs.
Okay. All right, awesome. Because I told my student, right on about that. I didn't think many people did that, but definitely on the hockey helmets, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because like I can crush a fencing mask, no problem.
Yeah.
With a simple angle one, I'll ruin your $150 mask. But the way we used to do it was you put on the helmet, you put on some light gloves, and you spar. Because rattan, standard Eskrima rattan, yeah, it'll hurt. It'll hurt bad. You get hit in the elbow wrong, it might chip a bone. But to quote a friend of mine, this ain't volleyball. However, to be somebody that pursues things that way takes a very specific mindset.
Mm.
And it's over time, I have learned that it's wrong to demand that of students.
Oh, let's hear about it. That's interesting. Okay.
So instead of, the meat grinder. And before I give you the wrong impression, this is very important. I make a very big distinction, a very big difference between sparring and free fighting.
Mm.
Okay. Free fighting is what most people think of as sparring. But I separate free fighting into its own category because that is full out, full on. You're trying to beat me, I'm trying to beat you, and we're stopping short of killing each other.
Mm.
Okay. To put it another way, free fighting is practice for actual competition. Sparring is designed to focus on very specific skills.
Mm.
And when you spar, I believe that you should have two opponents of vastly different skill levels. You should have somebody that is controlling the session,
Mm.
somebody that is learning from the session. And the person that's controlling the session needs to follow the 10% rule. And I'll get into that. What the 10% rule is 10% above their ability or 10% below their ability. If you are wanting them to work on defense, you fight 10% above them. If you want them to work on offense, an offensive skill set, you fight 10% below them. You give them the opportunity to do the skill that they are trying to develop.
Mm.
And you take them from that, where you don't go out there and just caveman smash and crush them. You bring them up the ladder. And then eventually they're out there going, balls to the walls with no problem.
Huh. Wow, interesting. So, so what if you got, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Okay, you got a student come in, he likes seeing the drilling and all that. What if he, for a plethora of reasons, he just doesn't want to spar? But he likes what you're giving him. He's having a good time. It's getting him off the couch.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you do?
I got no problems teaching him. I would encourage him to spar.
Yeah.
And this actually gets into how I've changed my approach on that. Padded sticks. As much as I used to be against them, simply because when you're using padded sticks and you're using armor and those sorts of things beyond the barest minimum to keep your brain functioning, you get brave. Watch any sparring session with padded sticks, and what you will see in most cases is two people running at abandon with each other and with complete disregard for getting hit by the other person's weapon.
the trades, the
Mm-hmm.
leaning to get the hand.
Oh, yeah, leading with the head all the time.
Yeah, that's what I mostly see because of the soft weapon that they're the leaning and knowing that they just mostly do hand and leg sparring, and you see that head just going.
Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, if somebody lays a 3 foot piece of rattan down the middle of your back,
Yeah,
you're never going to lean your head forward again.
I'm guessing not either. Yeah.
You're going to walk with proper posture for the rest of your life. Um, but I realized that I am unique, and my friends were unique. My training group was unique,
Hmm.
and that we came at things with like I said, a complete disregard for personal safety, for our own personal safety. We took care of each other. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We took care of each other. We were not out to injure each other, but we didn't care if we ourselves got injured.
Yeah.
And that makes for a really good dynamic. And it's something I'm really big on is that when you're sparring, when you're free fighting, you have to be with people you trust. You have to be with people that you trust that no matter how hard you're going at it, they are not going to make it so that you can't earn a living and
Yeah.
where you kids. You just you can't do that. We're not Spartans. We're not, and as has been mentioned several times before, even the highest level of spec ops troops, their operational rhythm, they don't go hardcore. They
No,
don't.
they couldn't.
They're
Well, it's
finely
not.
tuned athletes. There's a training regime. It's just like any other sport, like a gymnast or a boxer. Right before that fight, you're trying to get them just to that point. But the rest of the time, it's maintenance and
Yeah,
skill.
injury. Yeah, I mean, just think if they were going like, I mean, imagine like NFL teams, like during the week, every day during practice, they were going full out. Like when it
Oh
came
my
to game time, man, half the squad would be freaking injured. You know what I mean?
God.
So, um, yeah, well, point taken. Wow, I like your outlook in regards to that. So how do you okay, so regardless if they want to or they don't want to, like is there a particular thing that you look for to know when they're ready, or do you put them right away in hand engagement, or do you wait? I mean, is there things you look for?
As much as I hate to say this because it's going to sound hokey, there is an energy that I look for. There's a control of movement. There is an awareness of body that I need to see, and I also need to see a calmness of temper.
Yeah,
Um,
I think those are all great things. Absolutely.
and when they are getting to where I think it's time for them to start, sparring to deal with that kind of pressure, I test them. Um, you know, I'll give them a couple of really hard shots on the leg, see how they react.
Mm.
You know, are they? I'm not trying to blow their leg apart, but they'll have a bruise the next day, and I want to see them react. I want to see what their response to that is. I want to see, oh damn, you got me, you son of a, oh, let's go. Or do I, well, there's a difference, and is it, you got me, great, let's play, or is it, well, I'm ready to fight you for real.
Yeah, I know that might be. Yeah, exactly.
So it's and again, because I teach individuals. I mean, I haven't taught seminar in years, but uh, I have the luxury of being able to do that. You
Hmm.
really can't do that in a big class setting.
No, or seven. Oh my gosh, or 7 at 4. Yeah, right, right.
No,
Yeah. So okay. So the name of okay. So the name of it again. Yours. And
It's Americano, man. I'm an American swordsman. It's just everything I teach comes out of the Filipino martial arts.
that's awesome. No. That's awesome. Awesome. So, all right. So your whole thing. So you make some pretty neat training apparatuses. I catch some of the vids. I mean, and so what's the inspiration or, for some of these things that you kind of come up with?
Okay. Well, the Tire Man.
The Tire Man.
That's in most of my videos, which is just a couple of stacked tires with them, a stick through it. The stacked tires has been part of Filipino martial arts forever.
Stacked tires, yeah.
The addition of the stick to it, though, was inspired by Mook Jongs and Wing Chun and the way they use that. And I remember talking with a friend of mine, Steve, actually, when we were setting up a nice little training area over at his house at the time. He had a wonderful backyard, and we were putting together basically an outside gym at his place.
Mm.
And so we were setting up a dummy, and one thing led to another. And I remembered when I used to fence, we had this apparatus on the wall that was a foil attached to a spring, so that you could learn to engage and thrust, parry, essentially a thrusting dummy, a parry and repost dummy.
Okay.
I was like, hey, we ought to put something on here. And we went through a couple of iterations, and the Mook Jong was pretty much the inspiration for it. And we put up, all sorts of contraptions trying to put two arms on it, and that really didn't work out. Eventually, just one arm seems to work the best. It's the easiest to put together. And, if you need to work the other side, you step a little to the left. If you need to work,
yeah.
So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just a simple thing. And, it's so I can get out there and practice in the historical European martial arts, we call it a pel. The Romans invented it. It was a post stuck in the ground, and the centurions would go out there and they'd practice their sword strikes against the pel as part of their daily duties.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept of a heavy bag of target is nothing really original. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the first person to stick a stick through a tire, and I was just the first person I know that did it.
Yeah.
And so COVID happened.
Yeah.
And that's how I started doing YouTube videos. Was I simply wanted to be able to, because we were all under lockdown and nobody knew what was going on. Everybody's like, I ain't going to go by you. And so I was like, all right, I'll start recording some videos in the backyard, some tips and tricks for my guys. And I was just going to put them on Facebook. But Facebook wouldn't let me upload them because they were too big.
Oh, yeah, they're too big. It's not going to work. Yeah.
So I started putting them on YouTube. And then Paulo came along. Or he'd been around for a while, but I discovered Paulo, and he started encouraging people to do more stuff on YouTube. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm doing this already. Let's learn some more about this, and let's get better at it.
He was definitely doing that. Matter of fact, he actually gave you an award. I mean, you are certified, whether you like it or not. You are certified under GM Poggi.
I know.
You are, and you're going to have to. Oh my lordy, I can't read this, folks, but basically, I think you got the white guy award or something.
Yeah. It translates to I'm pretty good for a white guy. But so one of the things I've always loved about the Filipino people is their creativity. You see that in the way the martial arts are taught. But you also see that they're very creative with their training equipment. And, taking some old tires and stacking them up and hitting them seems simple, but it's a level of brilliance that most people don't have. That, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure that I would have ever thought of it. I'd been like, I'm going to go spend
Not
some
this
money.
guy. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm going to buy a heavy bag, and but why do I need that when 2 tires will do just as well?
Yeah.
So, I'm always looking for things to make, but it sort of became a targeted thing in my mind during COVID because we could not get together to train. And, if you do, karate, you can sit in your backyard and do kata all day.
Your forms and
plenty of stuff to do. But if you're a Filipino martial artist, you kind of need somebody. So I started looking at ideas and things to do that were inexpensive. That was the first part. It had to be cheap. 2, you didn't have to have any special skills to make it. If you could tie your shoes, you should be able to do this. Hey, I have known brilliant fighters that should never drive a car. I'm just saying, because you're a good martial artist doesn't mean you know how to use tools. So then I was watching a video of Mark Makita's. He has this beautiful setup in his gym that's this spring-loaded arm with a stick, and he's able to, walk and do all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more versatile than the tire with the stick through it.
With the stick coming out, right?
Yeah. I was like, how could I do this and meet that criteria so that people can do this at home? And that's when I started with the microphone, the table microphone clamp one, which actually right here. So the first one I did was this idea right here. This is literally a $20 microphone stand, desktop microphone stand that you can get off of Amazon, and a bit of pool noodle and some duct tape.
Okay.
And you can clamp this on anything, and it will hold a stick, and it will move.
And it's flexible. Okay.
And this isn't bad. It's actually pretty good for a lot of stuff. And again, super affordable. You don't really need any skills to put this together and have a valuable training tool. So then, in the dark corners of the internet, I was cruising around, talking to, scrolling, whatever. I saw a meme, or a little GIF, I'm sorry, of this guy in some apartment somewhere, obviously Asia, probably China, by judging, just judging how small the apartment was. He was practicing boxing, and he's very seriously practicing it. But the way he was practicing it was with a large adult toy suction cup to the wall. And by large, I mean cartoonishly large, like this big. But as silly as this is in conversation, he just walked up to it, slapped it, and it starts bobbing all around. He starts slipping.
Okay.
He's working this thing, and I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Number one, that's incredibly creative. Number two, it's twisted, and I just like the humor behind it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. So that in combination with Mark Makita's thing, couple of neurons collided, and then I was having a conversation with Chris from Full Pace Training.
Yes.
He makes the
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And we were joking around, and I've had this conversation before, but never really pulled the trigger on it. And I was talking about this idea, and finally I just went ahead and did it, and that's where the idea for this came from.
Ah.
All right. Now, this is exactly what you think it is. All right. It costs about $50 off of Amazon. Yep. Go ahead and laugh. However, there's a little bit of reinforcement on it because we found out it was too soft. I did not know enough about dealing with silicone rubber, so I kind of screwed up the hand. But what I've done is I've just taped it shut with a little bit of glue inside of it. But this is stupid as it is, and I'm going to adjust this camera just a little bit so that we can see my wall.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Is this not brilliant? You can put that in any place. You can not damage your walls. You can still get in your training. You can practice everything you need to practice as far as relationship to, using a stick, moving it, checking, cutting it. All of that can be done using that ridiculous training aid.
I tell you, that is, man, I definitely need something. I got the bob, a couple tires and all that, but it'd be nice to have something like right here in the office where I could just turn around and just.
Yeah, and like I said, during I'm a cybersecurity and sysadmin guy, and frequently a lot of my job involves waiting for things to run. So, and this is where I work from, right here at my desk.
That's perfect. While you're waiting for things to load up or what have you.
I'll pop up. I'll run through some. It's surprisingly good, John. It actually holds very, very well.
Oh, he's asking about the suction. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is awesome. And then we got Patrick. Patrick's a funny guy in California, man. I don't know if I want to see what that attachment is. That guy is very good. Patrick, I'm only can imagine what your I don't know if it's rated G or PG-13. I don't know.
Well, it's funny. Very few people recognize what it is, which gives me great hope for humanity on one hand.
That is true. That does give hope. Yeah, that's.
But as far as how well will it hold up, I don't know. I've only had it for a few months now.
But here's the thing, though. Let's just say you get 4 months out of it, the suction goes bad. You got 4 months of.
Yeah, exactly. And if the suction goes bad on it, you can buy a suction cup, cut that one off, and glue it on. There are things you can do.
Yeah.
But one of the big things that I actually, why this is big and important, and let me pull it off the wall here. And this kind of goes back to the whole disarming thing. A number of disarms require us to target that thumb. Yeah, to get that grab on that prominence right there and actually be able to grab and pull. You can't do that with anything else but a human hand to have that level of targeting. And so, it comes from a dubious source, but
I think it's great.
If you get past the silliness and actually approach it from a mature mindset.
A mature mindset of a training tool.
Yeah, exactly. You can see the benefits.
Yeah. That's funny.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly it, Emmett. If you're not afraid to install a lag bolt in your wall, but what about all the people that live in apartments? What about people that rent in general? I'm just saying that.
PVC pipe works great if you're not. Oh, I see what he's saying. Right. Okay, on the wall there. Yeah, right. If you're renting or something, yeah, that could be an issue.
Yeah, so having something that you can not destroy the walls, not sink, lag bolts into. Heck, even if you don't want to put it on a wall, it sticks great to a refrigerator door.
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm going to have to approach it with a training tool aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. What so we kind of touched upon this in the test run, and FMA, the current status quo FMA and all that. So just for folks who maybe didn't see the test run, obviously we've seen some positive changes since COVID due to the interaction, group Zoom sessions, what have you, people crossing lines that maybe would never have done that if it had not been for COVID. Probably maybe would have stayed in their own lane and still stay there. So overall, what do you see as far as the status say, and what would you like to see as far as improvements?
All right. We are in a golden age of Filipino martial arts.
I wouldn't disagree. I think it's better than ever.
We are more connected. We have better attitudes in general than any time in the past. We are much more open to sharing. We are embracing the art for the beauty that the art is. We are long past the point where this was the thing that kept your tribe and the family alive. So you can afford to share those secrets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What I would like to see as, Emmett, my name for that is the Moot Dong. Just so you
know. Just in case you wanted to know.
But as for what I'd like to see, I'm sort of seeing it now. I'm seeing us come together.
I do too. I just hope it. You know what my goal is, and it's probably the same as yours. It just continues and perpetuates.
Yeah. I want to see it continue. I want to see it perpetuate. It's like, all right, I do a monthly gathering here in Augusta. It's free. It doesn't matter what system you're from, as long as you come with a good attitude, you're welcome. No money, nothing. It's all about building community. And if we build that community will ensure that the art continues.
I think so.
If we bring ourselves together, we'll just burn brighter and more people will come. If we just have 100 individual candles in our garages and back corners of the parks.
So is yours thing separate from Chris Caban's or?
Completely. I only recently learned about him. In fact, I've been trying to get out there to the Krampus event, and because
they just had it.
It's just a couple hours down the road, but it seems like every time there's one that comes up, something happens.
That's what happened with me. I really wanted to go last time, so my fellow KI guy, be going down there, and so next year I told him it's got to happen, man. I'm going to go down there with you.
Well, one of the things I know about this, and this is just people in general. If you want people to support the thing you're doing, you need to go support their thing.
No, I
want to go support them because not only do I want them to come support my stuff, but it's not about me. It's about the community. It's about the martial art as a whole. And, although we, you might be Balintawak, you might be Illustrissimo, you might be PTK, you might be Serrata, you might be whatever. Doesn't matter. We're all one martial art. We're just
Yeah.
slightly different ways of looking at it.
No, 100%. I agree with you. So when do you hold yours?
Um, we just moved them. We do them at the Evans Town Center now. It's a very, very nice park. They have a big, huge pavilion that you can get under. If it's, in this being Georgia, this is very important. You can get out of the sunlight and into the shade. Right next to it is a fully functioning splash pad. So if you get too hot, you can go dunk your head, cool down, get back to training. And it's it's kind of I call it a gathering because there is no set curriculum. There is
Mm.
no set anything other than, hey, I saw this thing last week. You guys want to try it?
Oh, that's
Or
awesome. Guys get together, just like
mm,
grow. Well, okay, I like that. Yeah.
we got a PA guy here. I won't mention his name because he's military kind of,
Mm.
you know. He's got stuff he requests never to be on film, that sort of thing. One of those guys. But you know, he's got a little study group with some people, and he comes out and he shows his stuff, and we show stuff, and somebody else will show stuff, and we go down rabbit holes, and um, we try to attract attention so that people
Sure.
see what's going on. This is also the park where the local Tai Chi group always meets. So maybe we'll get some people out of it. Yeah, it's building community. It's getting the community out there and trying to do things in a way with zero organizational pressure, prejudices, or agendas.
I like it. I like it. Uh,
Um,
Um, when do you hold it? So what part of the year do you have?
Uh, every month. We do it every month.
Oh,
We
every
do
month. Oh,
yes, we do
wow.
it on we do these gatherings on the first weekend of every month.
Nice.
Sometimes they change because of fighting schedules, training. Somebody's got to go to do something, whatever. But me and a good friend of mine, Larry, he we we run a Facebook group that we keep all the announcements on and everything like that. Um, Ultimately, there's kind of a hidden secret agenda to it, but I'll be happy to explain it. I want to build the community enough that we can leverage those numbers to bring in instructors for weekend seminars and grow the education.
Yeah.
That's the long term goal. Um, you know,
Awesome.
not making money, but just bringing quality education here.
No,
Um,
what's fun? No, it kind of here's one of the things I'm for future tense. I hope it works out, but like everything, it's kind of a slow progression. One of the things my goals right from my discussion is getting not just the interviews and all that, or getting interviews on with folks, demonstrate their stuff and that the path that we're heading towards now, but also I'm thinking like, how can I also kind of unite geographically in certain areas? And one of the things I'm thinking about is you're trying to Northeast first. But one of the things I was thinking as far as the Carolinas, Georgia, was getting collectively a bunch of guys that I've interviewed, instructors, in like a mini camp. You know what I mean?
Funny you should mention that.
You know,
Something that I have been thinking about for quite some time. And again, this goes back to Jim Keating and the early '90s out on the West Coast. They had the riddle of steel, and
mm,
it was a big deal. It was it was an experience, and Jim's not doing that anymore.
mm,
Bless Jim, but he is almost stepped out of the spotlight and more focused on his home, and COVID kind of hit them all hard out there. Things are what they are. However, that is a beautiful thing, and it shouldn't go away just because Jim isn't doing it anymore. So I've been trying to figure out a way that I could do something on this coast, and I have some ideas, and not redoing the riddle of steel,
Hmm.
trademark, yeah, but an open FMA bladed weapon camp where we could bring FMA people, HEMA people, knife combatives people, crazy Vikings with battle axes, whatever.
Yeah.
Bladed, bladed cultures, bring those together in a camp with instructors that, would be sharing this to, again, show the similarities and
Yeah,
show
yeah, and that's
that
kind of what my goal. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of my goal. Like I would look at geography, like Florida. I think I could just make Florida itself. Like I go to Miami, pull from different people. But when I was looking at the Carolinas, I was thinking like, I could probably put Carolinas and Georgia together. And
check out check out a place called Kings Mountain, North Carolina.
Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Okay,
Write that down.
I'm writing. Matter of fact, I'm doing it right now. Kings Mountain, North Carolina.
I'll tell you this: it has cabins, it has a big flat open field, and it has a giant kitchen.
Ooh, Kings Mountain, North Carolina. So like, yeah, like Dan Medina's in South Carolina. You're obviously there. Some other guys are there. I mean, everybody, I don't know, six suckers,
Fair.
whatever. Everybody gets an hour to do their thing. I just think it'd be really neat. You know what I mean? Get
Oh, hey,
people.
Rob.
I guess it's someday. Yeah. So okay, what was I say there? If you had the time, like if there was basically like one system you could train in, you had the time, wasn't going to interfere with anything else, your students, your life, your personal endeavors or training. Like what system you think you'd like to jump in or train or experience? You said KI? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow, that's what. No, honestly, that's a rough one. It really, truly is.
Most
And
people say KI. That's one reason why I would suggest. A lot of people say KI. I don't know.
all right, like I said, and again, no disrespect to any teacher.
Yeah. No. Totally. This is something. If you had the
Yeah.
time, yeah.
If I could, I'd love to go back and study with Tatang Illustrissimo. However, however, like I said, I love what Tatang does. I love what I see. His movement is
Mm,
beautiful. His understanding of things is, and the way um, he interacts is beautiful.
yeah.
Uh, his understanding of range, his ability to go from Medio to Quarto and just destroy his opponent across that bridge
Yeah. Just
is,
close it out, man.
yeah, it's
I know.
beautiful, beautiful. But
Yeah.
here's the thing, though. I say that, but at the same time, I look at like footage of Angel Cabalis, and holy cow, there's another one, and he was this little bitty man,
No.
tiny. I mean, Illustrissimo. I mean, he's like my size, 6 foot. You know,
He uncannily tall, and the thing about people don't realize about Illustrissimo, long arms.
yeah, yeah, the guy
His
was
reach.
an orangutan.
Yeah.
Um,
You know.
but and at the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got Angel, super tiny, but amazing control of range, amazing ability to the only way I can describe it is to come in under the radar and get in there and just,
Yeah.
really apply that stuff. It's so hard to say that there's one I would love.
No, I know. I know. I always like to ask though. Hey, if you pick two, that's fine.
They're all fantastic. Truth.
Yeah.
The old
No, but
master.
you know what? What's your point though? If you could get them when they were alive, still, yeah, that would
Oh,
be.
yeah. I mean,
I know.
unfortunately, I can't.
I know. When I found out about street somehow. It's when I got Mark Wyatt's book. I think he already passed. It was like 90. I mean, he passed in 97. I think I got the book like 98 or something. You know what I mean?
I just wish we had some footage of him when he was younger.
I do. From Brickets. I've seen it. It's not, you
Oh,
cannot believe it. See, in his twilight years, he was doing the hanging step because of his twilight years.
Mm-hmm.
But
right, you didn't want to put you don't want to put that kind of stress on your knees. So
yeah,
you
hang arco, hang arco. But I seen footage of him late 70s, early 80s, and you couldn't believe. So he died 94 years old. There they say in 97. So the footage I seen of him was in the late 70s, again early 80s when GM Ricketts got the camcorder. You could not believe the footwork he was doing and where he was cutting. So people associate by virtue of what they see on YouTube, which is mostly his twilight years. However, that's an indication of how he moved when he was younger. You know who resembles him the most, in my opinion, right now? Yuli Romo. If you take Yuli Romo, and I see this because I train with Yuli in the KI, just in the KI lane. Yuli, in my opinion, has like moves. Based on what I've seen in earlier footage to what I see today with Yuli, But it's amazing. It's just when you see like that, just the way he was, and you're seeing, of course, a younger Tony Diego. You're seeing younger Yuli. I mean, so you're not just seeing him. You're seeing these guys younger.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, but yeah, Ricketts has absolute gold, Brandon, as far as the video library of all that. Just hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage. It's just amazing, amazing. So his father was the genius in that aspect to see that and grab that, because all the guys, they didn't have the money. You're talking Philippines, late 70s and all that. What about, okay, last but not least, future goals for yourself and system, what do you got coming down the line? Or you kind of mentioned a few things, but
all right, well, the short term goals. I want to start hosting a tournament in Augusta. However, what I have a format in mind that I would like to see done that gives us a compromise between let's call it safety of WCAF, but still maintaining the integrity of a bladed art. And I'm working on the details on that, and I'm taking a lot of ideas from the way Olympic fencing used to be judged pre-electric. As I said before, I fenced and I was a saber fencer. Sabers only become electrified in like the last 10 or 15 years. When I was fencing saber, it was done with judges, but the judges had very specific rules that they had to follow, and this would involve a good bit of training, a good bit of experimentation, a good bit of working things out. So that's like my next big thing to do, because again, tournaments give people an excuse to get together.
Yeah.
It gives them a reason to travel and share the thing we love. And, the best friends I have ever made in my life, I can count them all down to a man, have come from tournaments, have come from martial arts competition. And, because, it sounds a little cheesy, we are warriors, and friendships in community are built on respect. And we can give respect, just a default level of respect. Until two men stand and face
Yeah,
each other,
yeah.
that respect is only cursory.
Yeah.
It's only gratis. It doesn't have any real depth.
Yeah.
But when you fight, when you compete, when you engage in that struggle, win or lose, you, as long as everybody behaves properly, you build unbreakable bonds. And yeah, that's an amazing thing.
No, that's so true. I can honestly say that some of the people I have the most profound respect for are fellow artists. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, definitely. And it's not
Uh,
just based on what they can do physically; it's who they are
yeah,
as people.
yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that like is amazing, and so many people miss this about martial artists. Martial artists are some of the most intelligent people I have ever met,
Mm,
and because martial arts is not about just brute strength, brutality, and aggression. Any gorilla can do that,
yeah, yeah,
but a true artist, a true martial artist, they got it going on up here because you have to be able to think at a totally different level. You have to be a chess master to be successful.
no, totally. I mean, especially if you spar like just that whole process of like perception, reaction, and how to think about okay, this time, next time, I got you. No, it totally far as like intelligence and all that. Yeah,
Well,
100%.
we talk about over the last few years, we Colonel Boyd's work on the OODA loop has sort of reached a point where most people in the martial arts community are at least marginally aware
I've
of.
heard of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got the OODA loop. You've got observe, orient, decide, and act. Observe. Oh, a thing. Orient. What is that thing? Decide. Is it trying to kill me? Act.
Mm,
What am I going to do? And it's kind of in a nutshell. That's instinctive. Everybody does that. It doesn't matter whether it's a book falling off your shelf or somebody coming
yeah,
at you with a compliment. It doesn't matter. People reacting to that thing.
yeah.
When we progress as martial artists, we start off knowing nothing. Our next step is we develop a menu. We develop combination. Excuse me. We
Uh-oh.
develop.
I think I'm giving you COVID through the.
No, post nasal drip. All right. So I'm not exactly sure when. And again, this goes back to complete disregard of personal safety. At some point, this side of this ocular was smashed. I don't know when. It could have been in any number of sessions.
Mm.
I didn't find out about it until I went and had an MRI done, and the doc was like, "Hey, did you know that side of your skull is crushed?" And I was like, "Nope." So, I'm apparently very hard-headed, but so OODA loop. We go through this progression. We start where we learn. We know nothing. We move on to where we learn combinations. So I'm going to throw an angle 1, an angle 3, and then I'm going to cycle back to an angle 2 because he's not going to expect that. And then you practice that. And then when you're engaged in competition, you go out there and you throw that combo. But that combo doesn't work. He blocks it. So you move to your next combo. And either that works or it doesn't. And then you move to your next combo. So you kind of have this menu that you cycle through. A lot of people become very successful using that because of natural talent, physical attributes, all sorts of reasons why that becomes successful. In fact, many fighters build an entire career on it. But then the next level, that true mastery level, that is when you have your combination. You engage your opponent with that combination, but they change, and you on the fly change to adjust and hit them.
Yeah.
You're able to, and that's that mythical flow state that we all are looking for in the FMA. That is the flow. And you don't get that without hours and hours and hours of sparring. So
Yeah, because otherwise you're not going to get the recognition. I mean, you're not going to even see it or even click into it with the counters and all that. Yeah. Wow.
And the one thing I do want to say to everybody watching, to everybody that's watching, if you are not taping yourself, if you are not video recording yourself, as common as that is today, and as easy as it is to record your sessions, your sparring matches, you are killing yourself, because you should be taking those and watching them and analyzing them frame by frame.
Yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. Wow, and Dan, that would be awesome. Yeah, GM Dan. I think so. We get me, get a few of us that live in that area, and all of us get together. I think it'd be fun. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. I mean, I'm known to make some things happen. So they say. I don't know. So,
that's what I hear.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That Dean guy, he can make it. But this is this I'm actually looking forward now to even meeting you more, because this interview was A plus plus plus. I mean, this is phenomenal. I'm glad we made it happen, and where's it? Okay, so Augusta in relation to Atlanta, how far?
I am 2.5 hours to the outskirts of Atlanta on
It's not that bad. Okay, all right.
Oh no, it's not bad at all. It is literally down the highway, and it's all highway miles.
Okay.
It is like 4 miles to the exit to the highway that takes me to Atlanta from my front door.
Okay. All right. So, and then how far are you from like the spot do you reference?
Kings Mountain. I am 4.5 hours. Last time I was there, I think it's about 4.5 hours.
Oh, something. Okay, it's not bad. Okay.
Yeah, no, not at all. And for like something like a camp, or where, for lack of a 4.5 hours, it's a drive I'd happily make.
Yeah, right. Wow. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to. Okay. All right. Time for me to get the button gear.
They have a great website, and it like shows the whole campground.
The whole camp, and yeah. No, yeah. Okay.
It's also got some really cool history to that area. There's a thing called the Battle of Kings Mountain, which not exactly sure all of what it was. Something to do with taxes. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna definitely check it out. All right, but hey, again, I thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. I mean, before we go, do we have anything? Does anybody in the chat have anything that they want to know?
Let me just check, because I don't think I missed any questions, but let me double check. Personality jumped in. He said hello.
Yeah, if as much as Chris is going to hate me for saying this, if you want to get somebody on, Chris is a sleeper in the FMA.
No, he's more than welcome to come on. If he wants to come on,
He is quite
definitely. Yeah, it'd be my pleasure to have him on. Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have to write that name down. Chris Nally. All right, Chris, you heard it here.
Oh, he's gonna hit me for that one.
When in doubt, blame Bryan.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm perfectly fine with that. Yeah, you're out too late. Blame it on me.
That's it. But all right, I'm gonna go take my meds. Hopefully, I could just get this out of my system by 2 days. I can't believe it, man. COVID. I just, um, but yeah, I don't know. It's not that bad. I think 2 days I'll be hopefully good to go. You know what I mean? The symptoms are not that bad now, so I'm thinking I got on the lighter end. I'm praying. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I hope so too, man.
Yeah.
I don't want you.
But hey, you take care of yourself. It was good talking to you.
Oh, yeah, Bryan.
Oh, there. Bryan used to beat each other in the '90s. Yeah.
That's it.
You did allude to that.
Honestly, Chris is, and Chris is a good example of what we were talking about earlier. People that are incredibly humble,
Yeah.
incredibly quiet, and do their best to share the art and grow it and study and learn. Eternal students, and it's just a beautiful thing. People that are in it with zero ego investment.
Yeah.
And
Well, definitely get him on if he wants to come. Yeah. Chris, the offer's there if you want to come on. Sure. You know what we could do? Yeah, we get him on if he's more comfortable. And he doesn't want to come on by himself. We could just bring you back on with him. So we'll make it happen. Yeah. So Chris, there's that offer too. So, fine. All right. Well, hey, it was great talking to you, and my feeling is this won't be the last. So.
Well, I am happy to, man. This is my joy in life. I mean, I love my wife, I love my dog, I love my bike, and I love martial arts.
It's pretty simple, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm a simple guy.
Hey, I like simple. All right, Bryan, you take care.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Oh, what that happened? Oh, I don't know why that happens. I always hit the wrong button. Ah.
Is this where I should start picking my nose?
Yeah, I just got what the hell happened. There we go. I don't know. All right, that concludes episode 319. That was a good one, man. I really enjoyed that. Who is next? I have to look up. I know this week from today is Tim Hartman and Ty Botten. We're gonna FMA Talk. We're going to be interviewing their show, but I'm definitely going to try to get somebody in between there, like in the middle of the week. So, and that could be maybe Chris Durbaum. He's slated. Who else? That's about it. But yeah. So hopefully one during the week. But worst case scenario, I'm sure there'll be somebody in between today and next Sunday, which would be again that's FMA Talk, Tim Hartman, Ty Botten. So, all right, folks. Thank you for those who jumped in, watched, and asked questions. We'll see you next time. All right.